My name is Waldog. I am a flippin' vampire. But a good one. A holy vampire. Holy shit. But for reals. Pray to God. Pray to God a lot. And by a lot, I mean like 4 times a day outside of churches. Ask for forgiveness for certain things when I need to, when I feel like it's appropriate. Ask for guidance, ask for strength. Give thanks. I think that's the easiest thing for me, honestly, giving thanks. Because the type of lifestyle I choose to live is very humble. So to keep it balanced. And it's not that I'm afraid of myself. It's just more of a preference. I've been slowly opening up more, being more appropriate, more correct, becoming less reserved. But I've been doing it slowly, as everybody knows. It's very, very obvious. And not really because, it's just a good way to do things, right? At least I think so. And, I do have a lot of experience and knowledge. But I keep learning, and I think as a person who is wanting to learn how to do things correctly in regards to on the topic of spirituality, on the topic of learning things, and just with people in general. I'm a person. My way of doing things is always it hasn't always been this way, should I say, before I say always. But for me now, and for the past at least a year, maybe a few years, taking into consideration other people when it comes to certain things that may not be good for someone, including myself. Fortunately, I have the ability, I have supernatural abilities, and one of my abilities has to do with staying on the right path. For instance, if I feel like I'm not, if I feel like I'm not being true to myself, then, I can get saved by my supernatural abilities. But it's one of those things that I don't like to do because, I mean, clearly, if it gets to that situation, you know, in general, it's not a comfortable feeling, right? You know, I like to think that there's a time and place for being funny, having a good time, and being serious. And unfortunately, as I have learned for myself and for others, it is it's a matter of responsibility, and I've learned a great deal. I have that. It's like a muscle. I've got muscle memory, and I thank God for that. I thank God for having that trained inside of my, you know, who I am, and I'm glad that I'm grateful to, lifestyle I live. I could say many things about the lifestyle I live, and people could say many things about my lifestyle, but one good thing that could be said is that it's sober and it's drug free. This is nicotine, but you know, why does that matter? Like, it matters. It matters so much because that responsibility muscle, without if that responsibility muscle was impaired, I would be like a ship lost at sea. I'd still be a captain of my ship, right? I'd still be a captain, but I would be a captain of a ship that has a broken rudder or whatever, broken sails. It would just be sad. I try to take that, try to visualize that because I know it's healthy for me because it's the truth. And I know that there are many people who are captains of their ship, their life, yet their responsibility muscles. Because I used to be that way. And I said, what is wrong with me? When I realized that I try to use that muscle, so to speak. I don't know what it is, if it's actual muscle or if it's part of the brain or whatever. But I could feel it try to steer me in the right direction. It's just like, nope. And I said, well, it must be my genetics, because my mother was that way. And I said, well, it must be my upbringing, because I didn't have a perfect childhood. Well, it must be God, because for whatever reason, God made me this way. Well, all of that may be true to an extent. But it's one of those things where it's one of the rewards of living a clean life that nobody tells you about. No one had told me, like, hey, your responsibility muscle is going to grow, and there is the possibility that you may be lucky enough to have that be strong, to be true to yourself and what you want. And, and thankfully I have, vampire inside of me that is looking out for me. The thing is that, I've talked about this in other videos. When you're the only man in the room, which, it is a phrase. When you must stand up for yourself, you could, not necessarily being a man, you could be whatever. But when you're the only person that is representing your way of life that you want to live, I think it comes down to responsibility. I could say my faith, my values, which are absolutely critical to me. But it comes down to responsibility. What are you trying to accomplish? What's true to you? What do you want to keep? What are you unwilling to lose? That's responsibility to me. And then taking that a step further, if you can. If you're involved in other, obviously, we're all involved in other people's lives to various degrees. But what do you want? If you want the best for someone, or maybe not the best. If you want good, let's say, to some extent, for another person, and let's say, what you say and do affects, the other person. What do you want for them to keep or lose, if you're aware of it? And do you have the possibility of putting whatever they keep or lose that's responsibility. That's being an adult. Because, we're not all perfect. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's. I don't think that I could say that nobody. I'm speaking generalizations, which is always incorrect, right? I can agree. I would say that, but I don't think human beings are meant to be immune. And even if a person's trying to be immune to other people's influence, I think that's incorrect, because that's how we grow. At least that's how I grow. I don't know. Can't speak for everybody. But some people don't like growing. I've seen that too. Some people, just from my experience, they say, I'm good. And that's something that I'm still kind of that I have not experienced yet, because I am, I'm in the business of growing up. I just enjoy it personally. I used to have reasons, and I could come up with a bunch of reasons, but really it's just enjoyment. And there's a whole, checking my phone battery. My phone battery's all right. There's a whole, supernatural abilities, whatever, blah 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 blah. But it's like, them developing, whatever. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. Yada yada yada. But for me personally, in my experience, representing, being a role model, being an inspiration, being a rock for some people. Just being something for someone, whatever that may be, to whatever extent. Maybe just whatever. I mean, sometimes, obviously, if I feel as though sometimes it'd be nice just to be, a regular guy, and not have that effect. But it's not really an option for me. So don't. That kind of thinking is, to me personally, if I do that to myself, I see it as cruel. I don't know why though. I'll say that. I want to say that because if I was to take those words and take that mindset and to embrace that illusion, it would be just like any other mindset that is false to me. But it would be, but the difference would be, for me personally, it would be painful. But I'm sure that there's some therapy association with that I need to work on. I'll admit that part of me is afraid of not being consistent in some regards, which I am. I'm very consistent in particular ways. Or should I say there are certain things I refrain from? And I think I do it out of responsibility. There's some things, I haven't really thought about too much. Just say, hey, I'm not going to do that. But, or I say, there's better ways of doing it. Just true. But I think it would do me some good to further analyze, so it's not so painful. Anyways. So, I got locked out of my apartment. I forgot my key. Didn't realize it. Apparently, I hope. It doesn't really matter because I got a spare key. I left it at my grandparents' house, but I still want my original key. And I left it in my, I think I left it in my jacket, my two jackets that I wear to prevent freezing on my scooter. And I want my jackets back. It's not a big deal. And I'm probably, I don't know. I left them at work. I've been groaning so much lately. It's great. I love to make groaning noises. I do it all the time now because it's so helpful for me. I'm like, ah. Somebody talks to me. Yeah, I'm just tired though. Today's been a good day though. I feel like I've grown quite a bit. It's one of those days where I'm just like, well, I want to be more of a man. I want to develop that side of me, because the benefits are tremendous. My life is so much more just better things. At least that's how I see it. But yeah, I'm gonna sleep over here at my grandparents' house. I feel bad. I woke my grandmother up, but she's awesome. She even let me talk a little bit. I like talking about women. I don't give too many details, but I like talking about women I am attracted to or whatever. For some reason, talking to my grandma about women gives me a good sense of relief. Clears my mind. I feel lucky to have her. I think in that way I kind of miss my mom. But, you know. Life ain't easy for a vampire rock star. But I'm glad. And I know I'm just being an asshole. Life is actually pretty easy. Anyways, I'm gonna get going. And, appreciate you all for watching, and get some rest. So, y'all have a good